Life happens. Yeah, here comes the snow. So last week we heard the story of a covenant made with all creation. As you see the rainbow flag marked by the rainbow in the sky. This week's story is of a different covenant as told to Abraham and Sarah. It is an agreement to a specific people and their descendants. Now, and Christians, this is a warning, Christians need to be very cautious in claiming the covenant of land God made with Abraham as our own covenant. Also acknowledging that one of the intended consequences of this covenant has been displacement of people in the land that God gave to Abraham. Yet, we can learn much of God and ourselves in this story. God establishes this covenant with Abraham, Sarah, and their descendants, not just to give them a homeland, and not to be a people set apart from others in a protectionist and isolationist way, but to establish a nation who is to be a light and example to all nations. An illustration that we might understand is a response to the popular phrase, America First, as America first is America alone. This covenant between God and Abraham's people, which, by the way, includes Muslims and not just Jews, this covenant is a call to a way of life as a people of God. Both covenants, the one made to Abraham and Sarah and the one to Noah, call for a boldness of not only identity, but of action. Now, God says a lot of challenging things to Abraham. In this story, God says, be blameless. Well, what does that mean? Probably not blameless in the sight of the law, since written legal codes had not yet become a measuring tool. On the other hand, we understand that the law, or the way of God, is written in our hearts. For Abraham and Sarah, this meant some very specific things. They were to go where there were already other people and live in a way that brings life for all people and all creation. And by living in a good way, we'll draw attention to this as yet unknown God. Abraham and Sarah's response was to laugh at what seemed an impossibility. You want us to do what? It takes courage to believe in what is unbelievable. God says to Abraham, be blameless. The sense of the word is not to be free of error or to be perfect or sinless. It is to be complete. Abraham, live into our relationship and be complete. You complete me is how Jerry Maguire, in the movie of the same name, expressed how much he wanted to be with Dorothy, the love of his heart. You complete me is a cheesy romantic line. But it's practically true if a relationship is to be whole. Another line from the movie, this time Dorothy says to Jerry Maguire, is, you had me at hello, which I admit I recently used with our bishop. One of the newest and recently ordained clergy in our synod, now serving in Sault Ste. Marie, is Pastor Rita. Rita is from India. I met her sort of online at one of Bishop Finnegan's weekly clergy support meetings. And toward the end of the hour, Bishop Finnegan said something to which, being the idiot that I am, I turned into a very bad joke about dialects that I have a hard time understanding on the phone when I have to get technical internet support, which seems to be quite a bit. And as soon as I said it to this group of 20 or so people, I knew I had committed a racial slur. Then the group conversation was over, leaving my offensive remark sort of hanging in the space between us. Now, in my past, I have said some pretty insensitive things, but I thought that by now, especially after working at being inclusive all of my adult life, especially in the church, I thought I was pretty sensitive. Well, this incident happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I knew that I had offended our newest colleague, but I got busy and I sort of forgot about it. The following Saturday morning, the phone rang, and it was Bishop Finnegan saying that she had a sensitive topic to speak with me about, and I immediately cut her off and said, "You had me at hello." I told her why she was calling. I knew what I had done. We had a great conversation, Catherine and I did, about how no matter how hard we try, there are always things in our life that cause us to stumble. I didn't know what to say after I had insulted everyone, including especially Pastor Rita. Catherine, our bishop, didn't know how to call me out on it at the moment. There's this uncomfortable feeling, and we both agreed that I needed to apologize at the next meeting. But first I needed to apologize to Rita. So I called Rita. I introduced myself as the colleague who was welcoming her into our synod by insulting her and offending her, and explained why I needed to apologize. And her response was very interesting. She said that she had attended seminary in Chicago and experienced a very welcoming, multi-ethnic community, and fortunately had no bad experiences there. So I said again that I needed to apologize to her and to all my colleagues, and she said, "Yes, you do." If God said to me, "Be blameless," I could not do it. For certain difficult things like prejudice and bigotry and sexism or addiction or honesty, we can work and get better, but never be totally free from our thoughts and sometimes our words and our actions. Wishing to be in mutual relationship, God says to Abraham, "Be complete. Live into relationship with me and with your family and your community and with the earth." And living into relationship means there is going to be room for growth. Because while we will never be blameless, we will not be perfect. We will be wrapped in grace, gently in grace. We, God and us and other people, God and us and all creation will complete each other. Such a hopeful message. I don't know about you, but for me, believing in a promise that is unbelievable can be very hard work. It's a risk. It takes trust in something other than myself. Parents learn this. Children learn it sooner or later. Hopefully we all learn this as we confront our own personal and corporate brokenness, as we learn about racism and sexism and economic self-centeredness that leads to injustice. Trust works so much better when it is mutual. But here's the deal, and this is where it seems downright unbelievable. Even when we violate that trust, even when we fail. God has this bizarre and totally unequal way of saying, please try. Please do it for the sake of the world. And when you fall, which you will, when you fail, which you will, I still love you. Owning your own shortcomings would make it even better. You know, it doesn't take much to believe in a God who punishes, who extracts payment for our misdeeds. That's the way the world works. It takes courage and boldness to believe in a God who loves and forgives, a God who continues to offer complete relationship and wholeness in the midst of our brokenness. It takes an immense amount of healthy ego strength to surrender to this kind of God. The kind of courage that we see in Sarah, laughing at God and perhaps herself and her old man Abraham, and then being willing to even bear a child in her old age and go where God said to go. So a little bit of a change of topic here, a transition. I don't know who gets to designate such things, but there's a day for almost everything on the calendar. After talking about whales last Sunday, I heard from Kitty that there is an International Whales Day. And a few days later was Banana Bread Day. I mean, who knew, right? World Water Day is coming up March 22nd. Earth Day is April 22nd. Bold Women's Day, observed annually on the fourth Sunday of February, which is today, celebrates all Lutheran women who have acted or are acting boldly on their faith in Jesus Christ. Our matriarch, Sarah, should be declared a Lutheran saint. She who is bold in saying yes to God in the face of uncertainty. At another one of our Synod clergy meetings, Bishop Finnegan asked us to reflect on how we learned what it means to be faithful, and from whom we learned it. The next day, I heard an interview with Anna Maleka Tubbs, the author of a book called The Three Mothers, how the mothers of Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and James Baldwin shaped a nation. Bold and courageous women raised their sons in a way that nurtured them into both a relationship with God and enabled them to live lives of immense courage and boldness that changed our world for the better. These were women who nurtured and taught their children to understand the law written upon their hearts, especially in a time the laws of the land rode roughshod over them as black human beings, laws that disavowed the ancient covenants with God. One of the problems with citing these inspiring examples is that we normal folk pale in comparison. We come up short. It's hard to feel bold when you are a parent who locks yourself in the bathroom to get away from your kids during this time of stay-at-home quarantine. It's hard to feel bold and courageous when you lose someone who has been in your life for many years, and each of you had specific roles that kept things running smoothly. It's hard to be bold and courageous and faithful in a time of so much cynicism and dishonesty and racial strife and disruption. It's hard to feel bold and courageous when our world is full of viruses and cancers. It's hard to feel bold and courageous when trying anything new or facing any unknown, because we are so done with unknowns right now, a year into this time of unknowing. But boldness happens in the midst of unknowns. It happens in the midst of brokenness, as healing happens in the midst of tragedy, and forgiveness happens in the midst of sin and offense. God doesn't say, be perfect, as in never do anything wrong. God says, I will help you be complete. And when you stumble, not if you stumble, when you stumble, I will help you get back up. When you can't do it yourself, I will complete you. We have all felt weak and lost and broken. There are times it's hard to believe what to human logic is completely unbelievable. The story like Sarah's, stories like your own. That's why belief is so much different than faith. And God is asking for faith. And this is what is so illogical. God even goes so far as to say, when you cannot do it, I will help you if you let me. The belief part, that will follow. Don't worry about it. During the season of Lent, we often focus on what it means to take up your cross. That's believing in something that is unbelievable. Taking up your cross is not about creating your own salvation by what you do. It doesn't mean go and suffer for Jesus. The cross is not something we take up in order to be saved. Taking up our cross is taking up what is broken within us and within our families and our communities and our world and following the way of Jesus. Faithing that God is with us, transforming our brokenness into wholeness. The cross is God's presence in the world. The grace of the cross has no contingency plan. It just is, and it completes us. It makes us whole. Amen.